In my opinion, Godfrey Cambridge would have been a bigger star as Richard Pryor had a heart attack not felled him at the young age of 43. He was a terrific stand-up comedian who was not afraid to use his wit on the big issues of the day. Vietnam and civil rights were just two that were causing huge divisions in the United States at the time. As you will hear in this interview, he was articulate and committed. He started out as an actor and won a Tony Award in 1962 when he was still under 30. He made a dozen or so films and was working his way into Hollywood's top bracket when he died of a heart attack while filming Victory at Entebbe, where he was playing the role of that ridiculous African dictator Idi Amin. He was just 43 years old. I wish he had been around longer, if for one reason, so that Eddie Murphy and Will Smith would have learned the difference between ego and acting.
Godfrey Cambridge, who was the first person to call you a comedian?
I don't know. I always got confused between the term comic and comedian. I still don't know what the definition of either is. I guess one day when I was up in the mountains of New York, the Catskill Mountains, and I was on the floor and I was making people laugh. And the owner, Peg Leg Bates, the one-leg dancer, said, he said, "Man, you're a funny comedian." And I sort of looked at him because after all the years of knocking around, etc., it was recognition for what I wanted to be. I mean, they gave me a title. I'd like to make people laugh. That was what I started out to do, to make people laugh. And I guess probably it was Peg Leg Bates. And that summer of 60, I guess it must have been the summer of 59. Yeah, summer of 59.
How long had you been on the floor making people laugh before this?
Oh, before that, it was strictly a matter of doing parties. I go to parties and be invited to parties. And for $5 or $10 or at my own leisure, I would entertain. Or I go to actors' parties. And the actors would get up and they would do their bit. They tell a story or they do a comedy bit or the girls would sing or the fellas would sing. And I'd get up and I'd ad-lib. And I'd go out with an opening line and maybe a closing line perhaps. And I'd ad-lib and people would laugh. And a guy asked me once, he said, "Do you not realize how very difficult that is to go out and ad-lib, with nothing behind you?" And I said no, and he explained it to me. And from then on, I was sort of terrified of ad-libbing, and I started writing down my material.
So ignorance was bliss in that.
Yes, it was marvelous.
Do you want to play Hamlet ever?
Perhaps. I don't know about Hamlet, but Lear, perhaps, or... I run the full gamut of... I started out as an actor. So that as an actor, I have, the skills and the desires to play a whole... wide range of parts, you see. There's a move afoot now for me to do Death of a Salesman in New York in a revival, and I've been considering that. I've got several pictures that I'm going to do. I'm going to do one in Italy beginning in April, I believe, called The Biggest Bundle with Vittorio De Sica and Edward G. Robinson. So I am an actor, and as an actor I like to stretch my talent as far as I can. I've done Genèse the Blacks, and that was probably the most fascinating experience that I've had as an actor, because I found it just totally fulfilling. It was a role that affected me so much that I gained weight every time I do it, because you get so emotionally involved in it that it has some effect on you.
But you first became known as a comedian. Did you find that this reputation as a comedian hindered you in any way when you were after serious parts?
Oh yes, I found that I was what is known in New York as an actor's actor. An actor's actor is somebody who makes $10,000, $12,000 a year and is not known beyond these their own precincts. Now, what happened was I was introduced as a comedian to the world. So what happened was the vast majority of America never knew about my acting ability. I did very few things on television as an actor. I did mostly stage and legit work in New York.
Moving on from that question, do you find because you're a comedian in normal life, people find it hard to take you seriously?
No, when I'm serious, they know very well that I'm serious. I get involved in issues and things, and when I'm serious, I'm serious. I find it very difficult to be continuously on. It bores me to be on continuously, and people who are on continuously get on my nerves. I expect people to accept me as a total person. And there's nothing that bores me more than when I go to a party and somebody says, "I got to tell you a joke," and I said, "No, you don't have to tell me a joke." I said, "Oh, you must hear it. It's very." I said, "No, I insist that you don't tell me this joke," and usually I walk away. Because then it becomes, "Can you top this?" It's usually a filthy punchline, and I just end up being very bored to tears, and so I just move away. I like to be many people, not one person all the time.
Jonathan Miller, the English comedian, doctor, was writing in a magazine. He said he just can't stand the jokes as such.
Mm-hmm.
He said because it has to suspend, you have to suspend your belief, your credibility. Do you feel this way about jokes?
Well, I can laugh at a joke. I use very few jokes in my act. I feel that when it's a joke, I say it's a joke. I find my own humor out of my own personal situation and things where people can say, "Yes, yes, I've seen that," or "I've done that." "Yes, now I see." The laughter of recognition and of unity I find most effective for me, but I have no real objection to telling a joke in my act. Though I would never do an act completely, of jokes, consisting of jokes.
Do you think let's put that again. Do you think the tremendous surge of the civil rights movement has helped your career any?
I don't know. It's hard to say. There's nothing like when an idea has, the time has come for an idea. I don't know. I guess with the entrance of the civil rights thing, now they're allowing us. Everybody feels a little guilty, so to a certain extent, they are allowing us to come on the air and say what we feel and recognize us as a part of the American continent, whereas before we're always seen but perhaps not heard quite effectively.
Mm-hmm. Who do you think has done most for the civil rights movement in the United States?
I don't know. I can't give it to I wouldn't give anybody an award. I feel that there were many, many, many people. I feel that it was everyone from Medgar Evers, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. They all made contributions, and it's unfortunate, but in a war, you only manage to give out a number of medals, but you can't give out one principal medal because it just isn't so. There are many skirmishes fought, I would say, even down to the most valiant people, perhaps the people who sent their children to that first integrated school. So there are many heroes of the battle.
What do you think the next big breakthrough has to be? In which area?
I don't know, I would say probably in employment. It probably has to take place in employment and housing. These are, and schooling, I think, but employment and housing are the two main things. I got an apartment recently, a new apartment in New York, and we had to go to the Commission on Human Rights, and that's a lot of garbage, and I'm tired of the hypocrisy of the enforcement of these laws, and so they've got to get straight with that, and with employment. There's a lot of window dressing going on, but there's nothing really taking place. And I want to see the government really get in and enforce. If somebody violates their contract, then I want to see their contract broken and the work taken away from them. I want them to suffer a loss. I'm not interested in a lot of window dressing. If Johnson wants to impress the people, well, then do right. And then it will be the most impressive thing he could possibly do.
Turning from that to something a little lighter, I invented something today called the instant interview. I wonder if you'd like to help me try and perfect it. The point is, I suppose, you get used to all these questions being thrown at you constantly. I'll just throw various things at you and you come back with your reaction. False eyelashes?
False eyelashes. Well, I don't know. Sometimes I think that they're just trying to brush somebody off with and they're getting longer and longer. That's what my impression of false eyelashes are.
Nkrumah?
Nkrumah, I think that Nkrumah, as Richard Wright said in Black Power, was a man who had to drag a country 100 years and 10 years, and I think he succeeded in that. The literacy in that country has more than doubled since he's taken office. Hospitals have increased, etc. I think that all of the so-called smugness that I find with the CIA and various other people, I find rather amusing because since the white world has had all the benefits of civilization for so long, and since the Africans are supposedly just barely out of the trees, I wonder why the white superior world, and particularly in Europe, has not managed to keep the peace for longer than a couple of years.
The Beverly Hillbillies?
Garbage.
Thigh-high skirts?
I find them very interesting. I don't know whether I want to go out with a woman wearing one, but I think navel length is a good length. I mean, what the hell? Why should we have all surprises?
Jewish mothers?
Jewish mothers are great. I always think of being smothered to death in a sweaty bosom, and I find that Jewish mothers, Negro mothers, well, West Indian mothers, whatever, are all the same, because I had the same response in my house. I had to be either a lawyer or a doctor or an engineer. They don't know quite what that is. They think it drives the train, but it's decent, they believe. You know. Anything else is selling dope or procuring.
How about flying?
Flying, I like flying. I get very aggravated with airlines because they lie. I will call them up and I will say, gentlemen, I accept whatever you tell me now. It's foggy outside my window. Are you flying? Yes, we're flying. Yes, indeed, we're flying. Of course we're. I said, well, are you flying now? Because if I get out of the airport and I find that I've wasted a trip out there and now I'm stranded and I've given up my hotel room in the city, you will find a very hostile colored man out there. Well, yes, we're flying. And then I get out there and they say, oh my goodness, we haven't flown out of here all day. So airlines lie, but I do like flying.
Vietniks?
Oh, I feel it. They're great. I feel it. Let them express themselves. We went through that whole period of the silent generation. That was supposedly my generation. They didn't care. They didn't say anything. Now they're no longer silent. Everybody's aggravated. Let them raise all the hell they want. That's supposedly the democratic process. And I'm getting a little sick and tired of these smug, asinine people who sit around and say, well, they're communist this. I think, my God, I'm getting sick of the word communism because it's getting on my nerves. I don't think most of them would recognize a communist if they saw one.
Time magazine?
Time magazine, they're good. They give you enough evidence so you can draw your own conclusions. If you're intelligent enough to read Time, then you can draw your own conclusions. I don't think they're going to undermine the world.
Intermarriage?
Intermarriage, fine. I agree with it wholeheartedly. If God didn't want us to get together, he never would have standardized the parts.
Mr. Godfrey Cambridge, thank you very much for speaking with us, and I hope you have a good performance here tonight.
Thank you very much, Martin. My pleasure.